Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Queppet and I'm here to help you sharpen your masculine edge. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to become a centered man. In today's world, I see the majority of men caught chasing their own projections. They see their peace, fulfillment, happiness as things that exist outside of themselves, that they always need to chase, but never seem to fully catch. My goal in this video is to help you break free from the prison of your projections. I want to help you find your satisfaction right now and radiate it outward for the benefit of yourself and everyone else. Learning how to center yourself is the ultimate key to sustainable willpower and progress. Welcome back, everybody. So glad to have you with me here again. In the last few videos, I started talking to you guys about, ideas around projection and honor and things like that. And I figured, I'll just take it, I'll go all the way and I'll give you the full picture and I'll talk about centering. All right. Centering is, for me, probably the most important thing that I've ever learned, the most important kind of concept I've ever really kind of developed. And it's absolutely essential to the way that I try to show up in the world. Whenever I find myself struggling with this or that, the very first thing I try to do is to center myself. And, I'm going to tell you exactly what that means. And, once I get myself centered, if that doesn't solve the problem I'm facing outright, well, it puts me in a great position to face it and also makes me feel great. So basically my goal here is to teach you guys what centering is, how to do it, and hopefully increase, your ability to show up as the person that you want. So before talking about exactly what being centered is, I think it's probably easier to talk about its opposite. All right. And so to me, the opposite of being in a centered state is being in a projected state. And what I mean by that is when you're in a projected state, you view your peace, fulfillment, satisfaction, your value, stuff like that. You see that as things that exist outside of you. You see them as things that exist in your environment that you need to chase after and grab and get. So basically, when you're in this projected state, you're in this constant sort of, place of grasping and trying to get something, and you never really feel fulfilled. I think in my previous videos, I talked to it about being kind of like a black hole. You feel empty on the inside because you view everything that you need and really want as things that exist outside of you. So for example, if someone's trying to get in shape from a projected mentality, they view their sense of peace or worth as tied to this ideal body that they're chasing. And until they get that body, they don't feel at ease. They don't feel good. They feel like they're lacking. Another example would be someone who projects their worth or satisfaction or whatever on to the opinions of other people. This person might go to great lengths to try and please others, wear a bunch of masks, be inauthentic. Maybe they even develop like serious social anxiety because they're so afraid of not getting the thing that they projected onto other people, and this is a terrible way to live. Another example, like if you want more in detail about how this works, check out my video on lust versus authentic attraction, because that's what lust is. Lust is projection. It's putting something that you need onto the physical body of a woman, for example. Unless you get that thing, then you feel totally lacking and craving and that sort of stuff. And this projected way of living, it's pretty crappy, but I think it's probably the default for the modern person. The modern person, they're constantly bopping from one high to the next. And I think it's kind of very much tied into this consumer culture that we live in, where it's like, all right, your happiness is going to be in, that new toy or that new girlfriend or that new job or this big breakthrough or that big thing. It's very future focused. When you're living in a projected state, everything that you really want, it pretty much exists in the future. And, even if you get that thing, your satisfaction and peace is very short-lived, because essentially what happens is you realize what you were projecting on that thing, that was an illusion. Like you realize that new toy, that's not your heaven. That new relationship, that's not your heaven. It's never going to give you permanent lasting peace. And as soon as that illusion is popped, well, then you project again and, you keep going through the cycle, keep trying to chase and grasp and fill that void that you have inside. I think this also has a lot to do with why so many people fall into victim states, because if you are reliant upon, all these external things to get your sense of peace, then life kind of plays like a crappy slot machine where, hey, maybe you get your little goal that'll give you a temporary relief from the suffering of life, or you don't. And since you can't always control all your outcomes, you can't feel like you're ever really on solid ground, or that like you're ever really in any kind of place of certainty or real comfort or safety or anything like that. I've seen so many people live their entire lives in this state of grasping and chasing. I mean, I've lived a large portion of my life from this state. I even fall into projection daily, literally daily. Like it's just part of how we're wired to some extent. But, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to live this way. And I want to show you how to get out of it. So, centering. That's what we're trying to do. That's what's going to get you out of this state of projection. And when people talk about centering themselves, I think, these words are used in a number of different contexts. Sometimes people are just talking about when they're centering themselves, they're relaxing. Some people would say they mean they're clearing their minds. Other people, they're referring to connecting to their true priorities or something like that. But when I'm talking about centering, I'm talking about a very specific kind of internal shift that you can get very good at creating. Basically, the shift that I'm talking about here is going from that projected state where you view all the good stuff that you want as outside of you to a centered state where you view that good stuff as already existing inside of you. So instead of trying to grasp and fill yourself, you view yourself as already having and then radiating outward, letting that good thing that you have inside of you, that good stuff inside of you, flow out into your thoughts, emotions, and actions. So it's like, instead of trying to get this thing like you are in a projected state, in a centered state, you're focused on generating a mode of being. Instead of trying to get something you don't have, you're focused on being a certain way to honor what you already have. So I know that's kind of abstract, so hopefully it makes a little bit more sense when I start getting into examples here. So let's start with that whole idea of fitness, because when we're talking about centered versus projected, very often you can do the exact same thing with two different mindsets, and it creates two different experiences. So I see this a lot in the fitness community because people are so obsessed with trying to get in shape these days. And a lot of people, they try to approach it from a projected manner, and this causes all sorts of problems. So from that, like we said, from this projected state, a person trying to get in shape, they view, I'm only good if I get this kind of body shape, or, I'm only good if I can lift this much weight, or, I'm only okay or whatever if I can do this kind of stuff. And they're separated from their sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, etc. And it's kind of like they got this carrot out in front of them that they're trying to chase. Now, some people, they can actually successfully use that as motivation to, go that route. But very often this causes kind of obsession. If you know a health nut or someone who can't stop talking about, their new diet or whatever, like very often this is the case. They've kind of had this projection and obsession going on. But in many cases, what ends up happening is that person, since they've separated, they projected all their good stuff out onto this goal, they don't feel good enough about themselves in the moment to actually make the necessary sacrifices to meet their goal. So it's like, oh, I'm not good unless I'm in shape. Well, how are you good enough then to, sacrifice for your own benefit? This is kind of why a lot of people, they fall into these cycles of self-loathing and self-sabotage. So the goal with centering is to take that part that you've projected outward, take that carrot and put it inside of you. So you say, if I was already, that healthy, fit person, how would I behave? How would I show up? How would I treat myself? How would I live my life? And then you focus on internalizing that in the moment and let that become a mode of being that then flows out into your thoughts, emotions, and actions. So both the projected and the centered person might work out 3 times a week or whatever, but the centered person, they already have what they want. And what they really want is their own affirmation and respect. and they respect themselves in the way that they, go to the gym, the way that they eat, and they do that kind of stuff. They have that goodness inside of them already, and then they just focus on honoring it. The projected person, they're just grasping. They're just trying to get it, and they never really feel satisfied. And this is why people, can also very much go off the deep end, to extremes with these kinds of things. In the centered way, it's enjoyable. It's life. You've already arrived, and you're just letting that person unfold. Personally, I need to constantly be checking my centeredness when it comes to my work. Okay, like I have a tendency to really project my worth, satisfaction, peace, all that kind of stuff onto my accomplishment. And I have this, for the past couple years, all right, I've been working on a new course about personal transformation and quitting porn to replace my current one. And it's been tough. It's taken a while, and I've found myself at many points like telling myself, life will be so much better when I get this done. I'll be so much better when I get this done. I need this. I'm not going to be okay unless this happens. And basically, I'm just falling into a fully projected state where I'm tying my sense of worth, my sense of peace to this external goal, and it stinks. It causes all sorts of problems because, one, it causes a lot of stress, because I'm in a state of lack. I'm in a state of longing. And that stress makes me want to escape. And guess what happens when you want to escape? You're not very productive, right? Luckily, I've gotten much better at that than I was when I made the course the first time. But, it's still a thing. I think anyone who has a very big aspiration, they will tend to create that pressure on themselves, which then makes them actually want to disengage from the thing they truly want. So, got to watch that. But then also, if you're in a projected state, you're much more likely to rush something. You're much more likely to half-ass something. And I've found, if I've sat down to write a draft from a projected state, the draft's usually crap because I'm not really connected with what it is I'm truly trying to accomplish. I'm just trying to get it done, and it ends up costing me even more time. So the way that I would center myself is basically take that thing out of the future and bring it into the now, give it to myself now. So it's like, how would I feel if I had that awesome course out? How would I feel if I was that ultra successful person? So it's like, instead of trying to get that success or get that, completion, I act as if I already have it, and then focus on honoring that, focusing on letting that unfold, because I do already have it. I know that this vocation or this, goal, it's something that exists inside of me, and it already exists fully inside of me. It's just a matter of letting it out, draft by draft, word by word, just moment by moment. And that's all I can do. And when I do that, then I'm already full, and I'm full the entire way. And it allows me, we're all always going to have goals and things that we're going to be hoping for the future. But if you never actually live in the present and let it unfold, then, do you ever actually even live your life, right? You're just constantly chasing life and never actually getting to live it. And as I've talked about in my video on cyclical growth, you can't do this stuff perfectly. You're going to maybe start out strong, and then you're going to find yourself falling back into old patterns, and that's okay. That's all right. And for a while that really pissed me off when I first understood this concept and I realized how great it feels. I was so mad when I found myself falling out of it, but I've come to accept that, and that's just part of the process. And a little trick that I found, actually it's a huge trick, is learning how to see the things that knock you out of centeredness as signposts, as reminders, rather than seeing them as problems or challenges. So here's what I mean, all right? If you're in a projected state, maybe the presence of a beautiful woman, an extremely sexually attractive woman, that might be, a majorly triggering thing. You're going to feel that projection. You're going to feel it. All that's going to do is she's going to remind you of how much you feel like you're lacking or missing out on. All right, that's what the experience of a beautiful woman is like for a person who's in a projected state. But instead of just sitting in that, you can instead view it as, oh, wow, I'm just going to take this as a reminder that I need to reconnect. I need to center. All right. And the way you do that is okay, well, how would I feel if I already had that validation, or I had that, affirmation that, I feel like I want from that woman. I feel like I want this union, or I want this experience with her. Well, how would I feel if I already had it? And I'm not talking about, stepping into a fantasy kind of thing. I'm talking about simply reuniting with that thing that you've projected and separated yourself from. And when you can do this, when you can find that goodness inside of yourself rather than looking for it outside, then it's a blast to share. That woman that maybe would instill you with lust before, it fills you with, peace and joy. And then you can share that. If you're single, then you can share that with them and maybe take them on a date or talk to them or whatever. Or if you're, not single, then maybe you transmute it and you put it into your work, or you bring it to your partner, or whatever it is that's, most appropriate for where you're at. When you do this, it's actually pretty incredible, because you realize, oh, wow, there's so much beauty and goodness in the world that if you're in a projected state, you're just going to be filled with kind of this covetous desire to try and get and fill the lack. But if you can look at the world through a centered state, then you realize that there's just all these signs of beautiful things to remind you of all the goodness that exists inside of you. It's kind of like learning how to see, for example, sexuality as a signpost to point you to, higher union with, yourself, with the universe, with God even. So that's it. Hopefully this wasn't too abstract and you guys got some value out of it. Let me know if you liked this concept. If you got any questions about it, I would love to do any follow-up that you guys might need. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have yourself a wonderful week. Stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.